Hello, this is my Learning Disabilities Part 2 screencast. First, we are going to talk about child find and SST. When it comes to communicating with a student's parents, there must be an initial conference before the school can set up an SST. Here are a few things to do during these first initial meetings. You need to be factual, but don't get too emotional when you're talking about the student. You want to try and get the parents more involved in their children's education. Ask the parents what their goals and expectations are for the child. Homework needs to be the student's top priority, and the parents need to help when they go home for the night. The best thing for the parents to do would be to participate in their child's SST. The parent participation sheet helps the parents get out their thoughts about their child without having to be asked questions on the spot when it comes to the first meeting. This will also help give the parents some talking points throughout the meeting. The student participation sheet has two levels. There's an elementary and secondary. The elementary is for those students who are in 4th grade and up. This also gives the students a chance to brainstorm some ideas that they could talk about during the first meeting. The secondary sheet is more detailed and is asking the students to think about what they want in the future, and the questions are more relatable to their current life. During these meetings, all parents will react differently when they start to realize that their child is having problems. Some examples are shock, anger, blame, resignation, depression, and acceptance. SSTs are there to gather data about the child, for members to get together and discuss some strategies that may help the student. They have to monitor the progress that the student is making. Trust is huge. You need to make sure that you give all options a chance and let the child know that you are there for whatever they may need. And finally, referrals for evaluations. This is a sample summary sheet. This is another way to keep track of what's going on with the student as they are progress monitoring. There are many ways that parents and teachers can use accommodations during instruction. Here are a few examples. If you need to limit the number of directions that are listed on the assignment, that way it's easier to understand and more likely the students will be able to complete the assignment. Giving out alternative levels for work for those students who are able to complete them quicker than others. Allow for students to have extra time on their test. Make sure you make clean note of behavior expectations within the classroom. And you can send out daily notes to parents so they know what is going on during the day. Accommodations help children feel more comfortable with their disability and being in the classroom setting. Sensory accommodations are when you give the student a certain item that will help them when they work. For example, they have a weighted vest that you can give the student if they're having problems being away from their mom because it feels like they're being cuddled when they wear it. Some examples that can be found in the classroom are seats, mats, manipulatives, headphones, and clothing. Digital accommodations are for those students who need a different way to take notes or they have a hearing impairment. Some of these are school-appropriate computer games, a laptop, voice recognition software, and ways of communication. With the new technology, it makes schooling easier for those students who have a disability. LRE. The mandates of PL 94-142 were expanded in 1990 and part of IDEA, which helped them include a broader range of disabilities across the spectrum. These services became available for those students who had disabilities along the lines of mentally handicapped, LD, visual impairments, OHI, autistic, and emotionally disturbed. Parents are always able to be involved in decisions that are made about their child while they are at school or when they are in need of extra services. Parents need to have a relationship with their child's teacher or their teachers. Parents have the right to review the child's records when they want to. They must be notified before a meeting. Have a right to a fair hearing. They may deny any service that they don't see fit for their child. And during these meetings at any time, they are allowed to speak their mind. This court decision was also applied to Michigan. The case was in 1983. The court was forced to serve a disabled child in a non-segregated classroom when there were necessary supports that could be provided to make the setting available. The law had new changes to IDEA regulations through the state that students who have a disability cannot be removed from their general education classroom because they need modifications to the general curricula. There must be options within general education for those students who are struggling. The IEP team can meet to discuss what modifications can be made within the classroom to help those who are struggling. The IEP team consists of the general education teacher, the special education teacher, the principal, school psychologist, and the parents of the child. Honors the rights to students to learn together. This vision statement is there to ensure that students aren't exiled within the general education classroom because they are labeled to have a disability. They say that they are only going to hire highly qualified special education teachers. They are making sure that teachers who are being hired in have the best qualifications for the job and know how to specialize instruction. These high qualifications come from NCLB. There are two exceptions that can be put in place, and they are if the teacher teaches more than one subject, and if the class consists entirely of those students who may take some sort of alternate assessment, such as the Michigan Access, instead of MSTEP. If there are students who are placed away from a regular school, the school's facilities, equipment, and their programs that are available in that placement must be comparable to those in the regular school, which means that all students are to get the same level of education even if they are disabled and learning at a slower level. Assessment planning. In order for evaluation process to begin, the caregivers must approve. This evaluation is done with a team approach, and they use a formal evaluation done by the school psychologist. All of those on the team must put in as much information as they know about the child's abilities, their strengths, and their weaknesses. The main members involved in this process are the school psychologist, the general education teacher, the special education teacher, the nurse, if the school has one, the parents, and the principal. With this court case, the main problem was that Larry P. thought that the IQ scores were racially and culturally discriminating. The court's ruling was that one's intellectual functioning of a black child must be looked at by his adaptive behavior, personal history, and development, their classroom performance, and their academic performance, not just by their IQ test. Common IQ tests are norm reference tests. In order to get a full feel for the student's academic level, they need to be tested on their baseline test, not just rely on the IQ test. IQ test measures the following activities: language-based reasoning, visual spatial reasoning, problem solving, logic, and their awareness to common social realities. This is the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children, and this is a form of a common IQ test. This test contains several subtests that will help one measure the student's verbal and performance skills. Some examples of verbal skills are information, similarities, vocab, and comprehension. Performance skills are picture completion, block design, coding, and mazes. Wechsler's Intelligence Scale for children is administered individually and can help with educationally prescriptive planning. Wide Range Achievement Test 4 is a norm reference test that is used on those who are ages 5 to 75. It tests decoding, spelling, and arithmetic. This is a very quick and reliable test. The Peabody Individual Achievement Test Revised is a norm reference and a standardized test. There are two levels. The first level is for those who are in kindergarten to first grade, whereas level 2 is those in 2nd to 12th grade. This test measures the children's general knowledge fund, decoding, reading comprehension, spelling and written expression, and their knowledge of math. The Woodcock-Johnson Psychoeducational Battery 3 is a norm reference test for those ages 2 to 90. This test measures one understanding of content in science, social studies, and humanities. One of the main purposes of observation is for an educator to get a look at how the child acts within the classroom setting. You want to watch for certain behaviors that are being displayed and how they interact with others, or if they don't interact. You can also keep an eye out for what it looks like, or when it looks like the student struggles and what he does well with. Not all the children's behaviors are going to be present at once, so it would be a good idea to go back more than once to the room and observe the child at different times throughout their day. There are 9 different types of assessments that can show a pattern of strengths and weaknesses. Depending on what type of assessment the child is given, the score or level that they need to reach can be different. If the score is at or above, then that is a strength. But if the score is at or below, it is a weakness. Pictured is an example of how one RESD in Gratiot and Isabel County, they do their strengths and weaknesses depending on the type of assessment. This model was previously used to check and see if a student was able to qualify for services. In order to qualify, you need to have high test scores in one subject area, but low test scores in another. The catch was that the discrepancy or the gap between the scores had to be large enough in order to qualify for services. The problem with this model is that it left out those who are low functioning students, because if you are low in all areas, then you are not able to qualify for special education services.